Jeremy Swayman will not be in attendance tomorrow on the ice. Make everybody aware that some of the inconsistencies that have been reported are completely inaccurate.
Current Swayman offer from the Bruins, 4 times 6.2.
How come Jeremy Swayman isn't signed? This has started to build over the offseason. He's still unsigned. How come he isn't signed? Pointing that Jeremy Swayman's looking for $10 million a year. My answer? F out of here. See ya.
Well, I'm not paying him that either.
That's a crazy number. I thought it was kind of crazy at 8.
Chosen to wait, and rightfully so.
I would answer it truthfully, and I would say it's scary when you're not getting compensated for your endless efforts and doing what you do best. It's a nerve-wracking feeling, and the answer I'm going to give you this year is that I've educated myself, and it's given me a complete new mindset of understanding the business, and I understand the cap is going up and where it will be in years. I understand my comparables. I can't ruin the goalie market for other guys that are going to be in my shoes down the line.
This is Jeremy Swayman, starting goalie for the Boston Bruins, and you might be wondering what all of these clips at the beginning of this video are even alluding to. Well, I think it's important to have context when we're talking about this situation. Right now, the Boston Bruins and Jeremy Swayman are in contract negotiations to extend their star goalie, and after trading away one of their biggest assets this offseason, the Bruins have basically played every card they possibly could have, but still find themselves backed into a corner, unable to sign their best player on their roster. Well, what's happening with Jeremy Swayman and the Boston Bruins, and why is this contract going nowhere at the moment? Well, today I'm going to break down the entire situation for you guys and explain why I think Boston could potentially lose not one, but 2 of their star goalies in one off season. Now, to fully understand the gravity of this situation, we need to take a brief look back at the Boston Bruins goaltending history over the past 5 seasons. So let's begin all the way back in 2021 when the Bruins decided to sign a free agent goalie in Linus Ullmark. Coming off a pretty underwhelming season with the Buffalo Sabres, Linus Ullmark was looking to start a new chapter in his career, hitting the free agency market and signing a 4-year deal worth $20 million with Boston. The idea of bringing in Ullmark wasn't to get this high-end starter. It was more of a bridge goalie deal where they were trying to figure out what was going on with Tuukka Rask and if he was going to retire or not, while still trying to develop some of their younger guys like Jeremy Swayman, who are the future of the team. Now, after starting a few games, it was clear that Tuukka Rask was going to retire, leaving both Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman as the new options for the starting goalie of the Boston Bruins. Well, Linus Ullmark started to exceed all of the expectations of his contract immediately, putting up some insane numbers and even winning a Vezina trophy throughout his tenure with the Bruins in 2022-23, putting up over 40 wins that year with an amazing save percentage and goals against average on the season. While Jeremy Swayman, his partner in crime, also wasn't too shabby himself. He put up starter numbers while splitting games with Linus Ullmark, and before Boston even knew it, they went from having a reliable guy in Tuukka Rask to one of the best goaltending tandems in NHL history. Now, fast forward a few years, and while the Bruins have had a ton of regular season success with this tandem and all of the memories that they created with this, especially with the goalie hugs, it felt like they had a system that was going to be the next generation when it came to the NHL and how they handled their goalies. But the one part that threw this entire system off was how they dealt with their goalies in the playoffs. Starting 2 guys in the playoffs is just a difficult situation because of momentum and how teams build off their goalie success and their failures. Well, with the Bruins being bounced in the first round of their historic season by the Panthers and then the following year being bounced again, they just decided that it was about time they split up this tandem and opted for a true starter again like most other teams in the league. Well, the problem with this is that they had 2 contracts that were expiring. Like I mentioned at the start, Linus Ullmark only signed a 4-year deal, and while he did have a lot of success, he is a lot older than Jeremy Swayman, and the initial idea was to only bring him in as a bridge goalie while they developed Swayman. And with Swayman being way ahead of schedule, they decided it was time to move on from Ullmark, trading him to the Ottawa Senators for a first-round pick and a few other pieces, including Joonas Korpisalo. So now the idea was to make Jeremy Swayman the starter, while also making Linus Ullmark the trade piece that would bring them in a first-round pick and help them at other positions like center. Now, the issue with this entire thing is the timing of this contract. A couple of years ago, Jeremy Swayman was on his rookie deal, but last last year when the Bruins were trying to figure out what they were going to do in net, they took Jeremy Swayman to arbitration for a contract dispute. And at the time, Jeremy Swayman was looking for a $4 million extension, while the Bruins were only really interested in giving him $2 million because they had such limited cap space. Well, the arbitration decided at around $3.5 million, so Swayman did come back last year. Something the Bruins didn't account for, though, was the fact that Jeremy Swayman was not a fan of this arbitration decision, and afterwards spoke about it, saying that it was one of his worst and most nervous times of his career because he was uncertain about how his play was being graded by the team because he felt like he wasn't being compensated fairly because they wanted to lower his contract number significantly from what he was asking. And while you have to feel for Jeremy Swayman here, I'm sure going to arbitration isn't exactly a fun experience. This is a right that every team has, and a lot of athletes go through it, so it sort of isn't some new ideal that they were creating just for Swayman. It's there to help both parties at least reach a middle ground so that a contract can be figured out, not to really mess with one party or the other. Well, one thing that's not talked about enough with the Bruins and the arbitration deal with Swayman is the fact that the arbitrator actually gave the Bruins the option to have Swayman for 2 years at just north of $3 million, but the Bruins empathized with Swayman, hoping that he would come around on his next deal, giving them a bit more of a hometown discount if they decided to just sign him for the 1 and eventually give him a bigger ticket later down the line. Well, unfortunately for the Bruins, this isn't exactly how things worked out. Now we're in this offseason again. We're fast forwarding again, so hopefully you guys can keep up with this. The Boston Bruins still have Linus Ullmark. They still have Jeremy Swayman, and at this point they realized that Swayman was going to be their new starter after his pretty epic playoff run where he also, like Ullmark, put up some insane numbers. So with Swayman being the future like they initially planned, with Ullmark being the bridge goalie, they traded him to Ullmark, bringing back a bit of another wild card in Joonas Korpisalo to be the backup for Swayman. Now Swayman is clearly going to be the starter over Korpisalo. His numbers are just a million times better, but one thing the Bruins didn't anticipate was how much of a hassle it was going to be to actually sign Swayman to a new deal. Now the Bruins started out the offseason offering Jeremy Swayman allegedly around a $6 million contract similar to the one they gave Ullmark a few years ago, where they would offer him a 4-year deal, $6 million a season, sort of as a prove-it one, because in fairness to the Bruins, he hasn't exactly been the starting goalie for the team throughout his entire career. He's split time with Ullmark, something that we usually don't see from other starters who make that high-end value contract. So for the Boston Bruins, they were like, hey, we'll give you this lower contract, you prove yourself, and then later down the line, when you hit 28, 29, we'll give you that big ticket. But for Swayman, it feels like he's still holding a little bit of resentment from that arbitration deal, and he came in at around the $10 million mark. Again, all of these reports are alleged, so I'm not sure if these are the exact numbers. This is just what's been reported by guys like Elliot Friedman, of course, guys from the Spit and Chicklets podcast who have talked about this. A lot of credible guys saying that the Bruins and Swayman are just so far away from each other. And the reason they're at this stale point is because they decided to trade Linus Ullmark before figuring out this new deal with Swayman. Now, had they kept Ullmark, they could have talked to Swayman in negotiations saying, hey, if you don't want to sign for this fair of a deal, we'll just bring back Ullmark, we'll send you somewhere else, thank you for what you did for the organization, and just wipe your hands clean of it. But the problem is they decided that they wanted to trade Ullmark before the draft to get that first overall pick to help improve that center, leaving them kind of in a corner when it came to the Swayman negotiations because now he has all of the control. Now the Bruins were given the option to take Jeremy Swayman to arbitration again this offseason, but after seeing what happened last time, they decided to empathize with the player, hoping that this would give them a better deal down the line. They opt out of arbitration, they trade Linus Ullmark, and now all of the cards are in Jeremy Swayman's corner. The Bruins have nothing left to play. Now another thing worth mentioning throughout this entire contract dispute is the agent that's representing Jeremy Swayman. His name is Louis Gross. He represents other players like William Nylander, and a while back when Krug was with the Boston Bruins, he was his representative as well. And to my recollection, there were a lot of hard feelings during that contract negotiation period because Louis was asking for a lot of money on Krug's next deal, and the Bruins just weren't willing to pay it, eventually sending him to the St. Louis Blues. Now fast forward to today, and the Bruins are dealing with this exact same agent, but in a different situation because this time around he has a lot more negotiating power because the Bruins need this goalie more than they needed Torrey Krug back in around 2019. Well, now that you're all caught up, this is the situation. The Bruins backed themselves into this corner. They knew that they were going to have to deal with this contract with Swayman. They could have filed for arbitration. They could have kept Linus Ullmark a little bit longer, and they could have not given all of the power to an agent that they previously knew was a bit of a stickler. So for Jeremy Swayman, as a channel that really likes to support the players and them getting their money, I feel like he has every right to ask for this contract. In my eyes, he's a top 5 goalie in the league right now, and I think he's going to get paid like that from any other team, so why not from Boston? Even though Boston is historically known for having players take some bargain deals or hometown discounts, if you want to call it, I don't think that every player should have to do that, especially when they feel a little bit slighted by some arbitration deals that they were given in the past. Unfortunately, the Bruins don't have this goalie signed. They're starting their training camp. Jeremy Swayman is not present, and they're going to have to use Brandon Bussi and Eunice Korpisalo to start the season if Jeremy Swayman doesn't sign before December 1st. Should Jeremy Swayman not sign by December 1st, he's going to be sitting out for the entire season, but I can't see that happening. So there's only two options here. Either Jeremy Swayman is going to sign to a big ticket with the Boston Bruins, $8 million or above, or the Bruins are going to end up having to trade him, opting for the other two if they're playing a little bit better in net. But just a rocky situation for the Boston Bruins. They went from having such an amazing goaltending tandem to now backing themselves into a corner where they may just lose both Allmark and Swayman because of a bit of mismanagement. But let me know what you guys think about this entire situation. Do you think that Jeremy Swayman's in the right here? And do you think that he's justified asking for north of $10 million as some reports have allegedly shown us? Or do you think that the Boston Bruins were trying to work with him here and maybe we need to give them a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt because they're just trying to run their organization properly? Let me know what you guys think about this entire situation. If you think Jeremy Swayman's going to re-sign with the Bruins and at what number. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you like this one and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next one.